Welcome, ClearSpeak Academy channel. Story: The Girl at the Station. It was always the same platform. Platform 3 of Kingsbridge Station wasn't particularly special: cracked pavement, old wooden benches, and a vending machine that barely worked. But to Aria, it was where her story had started and, in many ways, where it had been paused. She came every Friday at 5:20 p.m., the exact time of the train that never brought him back. 2 years ago, she stood there in the rain, waving goodbye to Ethan as he boarded the 5:20 to London for his new job. He had promised her everything: weekend visits, late-night calls, and that he'd be back in 6 months, once things settled. But life had other plans. A car accident, a phone call, a silence that stretched forever. Ethan never came back. Everyone told her to move on. Friends, her mother, even the barista at the coffee shop down the street. But grief doesn't obey logic. It has its own time. So Aria came to the station. Not because she expected him to return, but because part of her was still waiting. Not for Ethan, exactly, but for the person she used to be before he left. That girl was still standing there, frozen in that rainy goodbye. One Friday, as golden light spilled through the clouds, Aria noticed someone sitting on the bench beside her usual spot. He looked about her age, maybe a little older, with an old book in his hands and eyes that seemed too tired for someone so young. He looked up. "You come here often?" Aria offered a faint smile. "Every Friday." "Waiting for someone?" She hesitated. "In a way." He nodded, as though he understood more than she said. "Me too." That day, the train came and went. Neither of them boarded. Neither of them spoke much. But when she left, she found herself thinking about the stranger more than she expected. The next Friday, he was there again. "Mind if I sit?" he asked. "You already are," she replied, a small smirk forming on her lips. His name was Liam, a writer, though he didn't like to call himself that. He had lost his brother to illness the year before and had been coming to the station ever since. "This is where I dropped him off the day he left for his last hospital visit. I didn't know it would be goodbye." Aria understood, more than he could know. Week by week, a quiet friendship formed. They didn't talk much about the past. Mostly, they shared books, talked about life, and watched people come and go from trains they never took. It was like the station was a bubble, outside of time, outside of grief. A place where healing began, not with big moments, but with small silences shared between two broken people. One evening, the train was late. The sky was a fiery orange, casting long shadows across the tracks. Liam turned to her. "Why do you still come here, really?" She looked down. "Because part of me still thinks the train will bring him back. And maybe, if I stop waiting, it means he's really gone." Liam was quiet for a moment. "You know, I used to think moving on meant forgetting. But maybe it just means remembering without hurting." She looked at him. "Have you learned how to do that?" "Not yet," he said. "But I think I'm getting closer." A few weeks later, Liam didn't come. Aria waited. The train came and went. The platform felt too quiet. She returned the next Friday. And the next. No Liam. She tried to shake it off. Maybe he had moved on. Maybe that was a good thing. But she missed him. Then, on a chilly December afternoon, as snowflakes began to fall gently on the platform, she spotted him again. He looked different, lighter, somehow. Like a burden had been lifted. "I went to visit my brother's grave," he said, not needing to explain why he'd been gone. She nodded. "I'm glad you did. And I realized something." He took a step closer. "We keep coming here, waiting for people who won't return. But maybe it's time we take a train of our own." "See where?" Aria looked at the 5:20 pulling into the station. "You mean, just go?" "Why not?" Liam smiled. "Let's stop waiting. Let's start living." For a moment, she hesitated. She looked at the empty bench, at the vending machine, at the memory of Ethan smiling through the rain. Then she looked at Liam, holding out his hand. She took it. They boarded the train. It didn't matter where it was going. It only mattered that they were finally moving forward, together. Moral of the story: grief is not a place to stay, but a passage to move through. Healing begins when we stop waiting for the past to return and choose instead to board the train toward tomorrow. Thanks for watching.